Today on the audio hotline, I'm going to be doing a review of Lewitt's new audio interface, the Connect 6. Now, the Connect 6 is quite a bit more capable than your average audio interface. Nothing wrong with an average audio interface. I love those damn things. But this device has a lot of cool features up its sleeve, and it's not just an interesting look that I honestly love. I think it looks so sick. I mean, this thing has onboard DSP, 2 XLR 1/4 inch combo jacks, a control center software for your computer where you can just control everything virtually. It can also connect directly to your phone and record to your phone and also get sounds from your phone. The Connect 6 does come in at $299, which if you're looking at all the features and everything it's capable of, that seems pretty competitive. However, we'll see if all the features and all the specs add up to something great. But I do feel like this audio interface could be a pretty good competition to the Rodecaster Pro II, especially for people that just want 2 XLR inputs rather than 4 that the Rode offers. But there are features that the Lewitt Connect 6 has that the Rode doesn't have, and vice versa. Now, I'm not going to make this a competition between the Lewitt and the Rodecaster Pro II. However, I do have both devices. If you want me to compare some of them in the future, I will do that. However, this is a dedicated review. Right now, I'm currently recording with a Lewitt microphone. It just felt appropriate. This is the Lewitt LCT 440 Pure, and I actually do have a review of this and the LCT 240 Pro. It's like a dual review comparison. Now, during this first section of the video, I'm actually using onboard DSP. I'm using an expander or gate, a compressor, and EQ. Now, just as a quick example, here's the sound of the onboard DSP with the Lewitt LCT 440 Pure. And now here's the sound of this microphone without that onboard DSP. But this is not the only microphone I'm going to be using today. I will bust out the Shure SM7b because I know everyone likes to hear whether an interface can drive that microphone or not. So we'll test that out as well as some other microphones too. Now, I'm going to be as thorough as I can be. If I miss anything, absolutely leave a comment and I'll get it answered for you. And since I'm almost positive that this video is going to be pretty long, I'll also include timestamps if you want to navigate through it and see what you want to see. Now, I do also want to say thank you to Lewitt for sending me the Connect 6 to try out. I've got to admit, Lewitt is actually one of my favorite companies to work with. That definitely doesn't mean that they're automatically going to get a good review. In fact, they sent this device to me with the intention of getting an honest review. But since the Connect 6 is pretty complex and I don't want to drag this video out any longer than it should be, I'm going to go ahead and dive in. Let's go ahead and talk about what comes with the Lewitt Connect 6. If you decide to purchase the Lewitt Connect 6, it will come with 2 cables, a USB-C to USB-C, and also a USB-C to USB Type-A. And both of these do come with adorable Lewitt cable ties. This will come with some documentation as well as 2 stickers. And of course, it will include the audio interface itself, the Connect 6. In addition to the audio interface, you will also get access to Lewitt's Control Center software. This software allows you to control the audio interface from your computer. Everything that's included with this audio interface is good. The cables that are included are nice. They're about 5 feet in length, which is great. And I do always love me a nice branded cable tie. Asthma. But now let's go ahead and move on to the features of the Connect 6, and while I do that, I'm actually going to plug in the SM7b. During this section, I would usually show you some pretty B-roll, but since this is an audio interface, it's a little bit easier just to point out the features. So up front, we'll just start on this left side here. Right now, input 1 is lit up, and it's because it is getting a signal right now from me. That's the channel I'm using. So if you were using both input 1 and 2, they would both be lit up. And in association with input 1 and 2, you will also have your meter correspond with that, the top being input 1 and the bottom being input 2. And just to demonstrate that really quick, I have another microphone plugged in and I have it right up on my mouth so you can see it actually does have a stronger signal than my SM7b and that both of them are lit up. And now if you clip, it will turn red. I'll go ahead and clip just so you can actually see that. And next to those input indicators, you will see 1 and 2 for headphones. And as you can see, I actually just plugged in some headphones and you can see that right now this dial is actually controlling my headphone volume. If I were to press this button in a couple times, then I could have it change my gain for input 1. But then if I want to go back, I just press it a couple more times and then now I'm controlling my headphone volume again. So quite basically, whatever is lit up is what you're controlling with the dial. Next to that, you will see a little speaker icon, and that of course has to do with the outputs that are up here. These outputs you can send to speakers, you could send them to more headphones. They will only play on one side since they are mono, but there is actually another stereo output back there. But if you were to plug those in and then click this dial in a couple times, you'd be able to control the speaker volume. And underneath that, you will see the 48 volts of phantom power, and that will show up if you are highlighted on an input and if that input has 48 volts of phantom power on. So for instance, I just enabled input 2 to have 48 volts on. So if I were to select that, it will show the 48 volts of phantom power is on. And if I were to disable that in the control center, you'll see that that goes away. But as I showed before, these are your meters as well as your volume indicator, like for instance with me turning up my headphones right now. Now on the bottom of the audio interface, you will see two headphone outputs. The headphone output labeled 1 is actually a 3.5mm connection, also known as 1/8 inch, and number 2 is actually a 1/4 inch headphone jack, also known as 6.35mm. And as I mentioned before, the headphone volume can be controlled by clicking the dial in until the headphone jack you desire is highlighted, and then you can move the dial up and down to your desired level. Now let's go ahead and talk about the back side of the Connect 6, starting with the right side. This is where you will find input 1 and input 2. Both of these are XLR 1/4 inch combo jacks. So you can plug a 1/4 inch instrument cable, go direct in with a guitar into either of these inputs. Next to that, you will see two mono outputs. If you were to use studio monitors like I usually do, this is where you could plug those in. One of them going to the right side, one of them going to the left. Next to that, we actually have one of my favorite features. This next plug is a 3.5mm stereo output. So if you were just using some basic speakers, you could just plug that directly into here. Then you don't have to worry about these mono outputs. This stereo output is controlled the same way as this right and left output. And one way that this stereo output can work is actually as a third set of headphones. I have mine plugged into it right now. It's working great. Next to that, we get into the USB-C mobile plug. And interestingly enough, this plug actually works as an in and an out. And one thing that is nice for you iPhone users, you can actually use your charging cable for your iPhone. It works perfectly. That's how I've been using it with my phone. But if you plug in your phone, you can actually go to a recording app. The Lewitt Connect 6 will show up as a device, and you can record directly from the Lewitt Connect 6 to your phone. As a quick example of that, I'm actually in the iRig app right now, recording at 24-bit at 48 kilohertz. And here's how the audio sounds going directly into my phone from the Lewitt Connect 6. But one thing you absolutely can do is play sounds from your phone. So for instance, if I played Bark from Obscure Mics and I's podcast, Obscure Hotline, super clever name, it would play into the Lewitt Connect 6.
You can shape a microphone with your environment too. There's a lot to it.
And that's another thing, is just knowing what microphone to use in a certain situation. I didn't really want to show off the podcast. It's just one of the few things that's copyright free to me that I could play through here. But once we get through these features, I'll show you how to control a lot of these things in the Lewitt Control Center software. But next to that, you have your auxiliary in, and this is in fact just an auxiliary in. It doesn't work as another output. But this is another way you could connect a device to get sound to go into it, whether it's a computer, iPad, your phone, literally anything that will play something through a 3.5mm connection. Next to that, you have a power plug, and you might be like, hey, well, why don't you have power plugged in if you're recording with this right now? Because you actually don't need it. This can be powered by your computer. As you can see right now, I do have my computer plugged into it. I'm recording in Hindenburg right now, and this actually does come with a Cubase Lite version, but this power plug is really nice in the sense that you can still use this device and you don't need your computer. So you could just power this and still use the mobile out, record to your phone. You could use the other outputs to go to like a Zoom or something. So you're not stuck using it with your computer. You actually don't need it plugged into your computer. With the computer software, it does give you a lot more flexibility, and maybe they're going to come out with an app for it. I don't know, but this is still a really nice way to power this device and still be able to use it mobily. But now that I've shown you a lot of the physical features with the Lewitt, now I'll go ahead and jump into the Lewitt Control Center software and just skim through that really quick. So now I have the Lewitt Control Center for the Connect 6 pulled up. We'll just start right up at the top. There is a preset section right here. This way you can save presets for certain microphones, certain setups, and just pull those back up. Then we have a sample rate that you can choose between 44.1 kilohertz, 48 kilohertz, and 96 kilohertz. Then there's a little information button as well as a settings button. Here you can actually map the native volume controls to the speakers or headphones. And then you also have the option of using the LED brightness at low, medium, or high. And this is also where you can go to check for updates. Now let's get to the good stuff. Starting on the left, as you can see up here, it says the hardware inputs, which includes input 1, input 2, auxiliary in, and mobile in. So right now you can see that I am using input 1. I am using the SM7b. Input 1 and input 2 are the same. You have the auto setup option that you can go through. So you can choose whether you're using a condenser mic, a dynamic mic, or an instrument input. Then you can click what you're going to be doing with it, sing, talk, or play an instrument. Then you can choose whether it's going to be live or a recording. And then you'll actually press this start measure and you'll just talk or sing into your microphone or play your instrument for 10 seconds, and it will automatically set this up for you. Underneath the auto setup is where you have your gain dial, and I'm actually at 45 decibels on the SM7b, and I'm actually running a little bit too hot for my liking, but we'll just leave it at that for now. Underneath the gain dial, you'll see an option to turn on 48 volts of phantom power, to add a high pass filter, or to flip the phase if you're having phase issues. Underneath that is your mute button. I'm sure you all know what that does. It mutes you. Then underneath that is where the DSP comes into play. Essentially, these plugins do not change order. You cannot swap them. This is the default way they are set up. So first you have an expander, also known as a gate. Then you have a compressor and then an equalizer. Right now, here are my settings for the expander with the SM7b. I have customized these a little bit. I would like to pin it down even a little bit better, but for now, this is working okay. And that's definitely one thing to note. If you're used to certain plugins or certain DSP, definitely take your time to mess around with this if you decide to get it. All of them are very different. The parameters are not the same. They're not identical. Next, I do have a compressor on, and these are the settings that I'm currently using. And after that, I do have an EQ setup. This is a 4-band EQ. So you don't have a ton of options with this, but it's honestly good enough. And down here, you can choose to enable or disable certain bands. And you do have plenty of options for all of these bands, whether it's low cut, low shelf, peak, notch, high shelf, or high cut. And in each of these individual DSP plugins, you can save your own presets. And actually, it's really nice. Currently, I have the SM7b EQ preset. If I make a change that I decide that I like more, I can actually just press this little arrow and it'll automatically just overwrite that file. Or of course, you can delete that preset with a little trash can next to it. Underneath that, you do have your faders, and that's a way you can turn your channel down. That chain symbol is what locks the mix A and mix B. And essentially, the mix A and mix B are just some different routing options that you can have. That way you can send certain things to mix A, certain things to mix B, and record them in a software, or choose to not record them in a software if you don't want certain things in there. Or you can use it to hear certain things during your live stream and not others. There's honestly a bunch of different ways that you can route that with the two mixes. But if I click that little chain icon, it'll unlink these so I can adjust mix A and mix B as desired. And down here, you can choose to not send input 1 to mix A or not send it to mix B. And the same goes for input 2 as well as any of the inputs and software channels. Now, next in the hardware inputs is the auxiliary in. Currently, I have a 3.5mm cable going from the auxiliary in into another computer's headphone jack. And I just have a little song queued up. Let's hit that shit. There you go. And so now I can just have this random weird ass song playing in the back of this. I mean, you don't have to play weird music during your live streams or whatever, but I mean, you should. You definitely should. Next to that, you have your mobile in, and it honestly works very similar to the auxiliary in. If you have your phone plugged in, you can just start playing something on your phone and it'll go right into the Lewitt. But for instance, if I were to play like my latest video or something through my phone into that mobile in, then you'd be able to hear that. Today on the audio hotline, I'm going to be doing a review of the Underneath the auxiliary in and mobile in, you will see an option for a maximizer for mix A and mix B. Very simply put, the maximizer is just going to add some extra gain to your mix. Next to the hardware inputs are some software channels. You have output 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6, and these are all stereo. One thing I can touch on right now is I'm actually routing my loop back to output 1 and 2. And currently I have a kitty purr test that's set to loop back as soon as I play the video. And as you can see right here in Hindenburg where my cursor is, that's where the kitty purr test was playing, which you can actually see right here, Connect 6 loop B. But next to that loop back there are the hardware outputs. Currently I have the speaker muted because I actually do have my studio monitors plugged in, but currently I'm actually using headphone number 2. But it's super nice that you can route whatever you want to your speakers or your headphones or your mobile out. And now actually for probably my favorite feature of this whole thing, the mobile out. In fact, we're going for it right now. I'm currently recording this whole thing into my phone right now. This is not my computer audio. And to prove that, I will turn this down. And I'm sure that it's getting quiet. Okay, I'm going to turn it back up. And this interface not needing to be plugged into a computer is definitely a big deal when it comes to that mobile out. So there's just a real quick run through of this software. I didn't get super in depth, but if you have any additional questions, definitely leave them down below and I'll try to get to them. But now I have the trusty SM7b plugged back in. We're going to do a couple tests with the SM7b. The first thing I want to do is test out the noise floor level associated with the Lewitt. Now the Rodecaster Pro II has this whole little thing where if you use a microphone activator, the noise floor level is actually noisier than if you don't use one at all. And actually this was confirmed by a great YouTuber, Tom Buck. Tom Buck has a great channel. I'm sure that a lot of you have watched him, but if you haven't, you should go check him out. But Tom confirmed that this whole mic activator versus no mic activator was actually true when it came to the Rodecaster Pro II. So I want to test out a mic activator versus no mic activator with the Lewitt Connect 6. And since this mic activator is the most popular when it comes to the SM7b, I'm going to be using the Cloudlifter. Using some white noise, I'm going to set the gain with and without the mic activator, making sure it's hitting negative 12 decibels in both instances. Now I'll show you the actual noise floor level and then I will boost it in post and show you a boosted version also. So there's the test of the noise floor level with and without the Cloudlifter, but it actually did work out perfectly. The Cloudlifter is supposed to add 25 decibels of gain, and that's exactly what it did. But right now I have it set at 15, and before I plugged the Cloudlifter in, it was at 40. And currently I am actually using the Cloudlifter. But now we're just going to test out the entire gain range. I'm going to start at negative 6 decibels, and then we're going to turn it all the way up to 72 decibels. And this is obviously going to be with no mic activator. All right, so now I'm going to turn the gain all the way down. And now we're going up, we're at 20, and now we are at 30, and now we are going up to 40 decibels, now we're going up to 50 decibels, and now we are going up to 60 decibels. Jeez, this thing gets loud. And now we are still climbing. We're going up to, this is 70 decibels right here. Jeez, I'm going over negative 12 right now. And now this is maxed out at 72 decibels. This is the furthest away I've ever been from an SM7b and still been actually going over negative 12 decibels. This is insane. Now I know this might look a little bit weird with two SM7Bs pointed at my mouth hole, but there's a reason for it. Currently I have one of these plugged into the Lewitt Connect 6 and the other plugged into the Rodecaster Pro II. So on the Rodecaster Pro II, when you're setting your gain, it goes from 0 decibels to 76 decibels. However, on the Lewitt Connect 6, it goes from negative 6 decibels to plus 72 decibels. But both of these are hitting negative 12 decibels on their meters, so we should be good to go. On the Rodecaster Pro II, I have the gain set at 55 decibels, which is the recommended setting for the Rodecaster Pro II. So currently I have the Lewitt set at 49 decibels to kind of even the playing field a little bit, but I did just want to do a quick noise floor level test between the two of these. And then also I wanted to max their gain out to see which one has a little bit more gain to play with. But I'm going to play some white noise and make sure the gain is absolutely perfect on these two and completely fair. Then I'll show you the noise floor level associated with this setting, and then we'll max them out and see how they sound also. Now we'll start with the Lewitt and then we'll go to the Rode. I'll indicate when I switch up on the screen. Since I do have a little bit of a louder voice, I'm actually going to go up a little bit more to kind of accommodate what the average voice would probably be as far as volume goes. Then we'll check out that noise floor level, and then we'll max them out. So now I am at 59 decibels of gain on the Lewitt and 65 decibels of gain on the Rodecaster Pro II. Both are hitting negative 12 decibels on my meter perfectly, so we should be good to go. Here's the noise floor level for these. Now we're going to max these out because I am curious which one has a little bit more gain to play with. I know we can look at the decibels and compare them on a spec sheet, but sometimes testing stuff out is a little bit more illuminating. So now I'm at 72 decibels on the Lewitt and 76 decibels on the Rodecaster. Now maybe these are identical and you can't hear a difference in gain right now, but I would assume that one of them is louder than the other. In post, I will turn this down a little bit just so it's not so loud for you. When I'm looking at the meter in the Lewitt software versus the panel on the Rodecaster Pro II, it honestly looks like the Lewitt is kicking its ass and is way louder. But being loud isn't everything. It having a good, clean preamp is very important. It looks like I'm about to perform a seance. I decided to go just to a random spot in my house and record mobily, just using like the power plug and my phone. But right now I'm currently using the Rode M2. This is a handheld condenser microphone. I wanted to mobily record using phantom power just as a test. But here's how this sounds going into the iRig recorder app in my phone. Like I mentioned previously, I haven't heard any rumblings of a Lewitt app. I really hope they do that. I think that'd be awesome. But there are a lot of other recording apps that this does seem very compatible with. But while I'm mobily doing this, there is one other thing I want to test out. Well, what I wanted to try out actually does work really well. Instead of going into the wall, I am actually just going right into this USB-C power brick, and everything is running smoothly. It's all great. One other thing to mention, if you're not getting a sufficient amount of power, it actually will start like blinking at you when it turns on. It's quite aggressive and easy to notice. But now let's go ahead and finish this seance up and go back into the office. Now I'm currently recording with a $20 microphone. This is the Behringer Xm8500. I'm not really doing this in particular as a test, more so just telling you about the next part that I'm doing. But hey, if you're interested in buying a $300 interface and you want a $20 microphone, here's how it could sound with some DSP on. But for this next part, it's going to be a guitar and bass test. The first section is just me going directly into the interface, no amp sims or anything like that. Then after that, there is just a rough mix that does have some amp sims on it. It is the Slate Digital amp sims for the bass and the guitars, if you're wondering. So let's go ahead and get into that music test really quick. Well, now that we've talked about the accessories and the specs, and we walked through the features and the software, now I'm finally ready to give you my opinion of the Lewitt Connect 6. Starting with the build quality, it is actually built really well. The XLR ports do not have a lot of wiggle. Actually, none of the ports do. It's really nice. The dial does work well. I do get a little frustrated with the pushing in of the dial to like get to where I want, whether it's an input or an output, but it's really not that big of a deal, and I do find myself just controlling this interface through software a lot of the time, and I really think that's where its strength is. But once you get it all set up the way you want in software, you don't really have to mess with a whole lot. But when it comes to actual physical features that I wish it had, I do wish it had an SD card. Just for my personal use, I love having that SD card. But with the functionality of that mobile plug and just being able to record straight to your phone as a backup, or even being able to record to like a Zoom H1 through that stereo out on the back, that's honestly just about as good as an SD card anyway. And physically, the only other thing that I do wish it had is some sort of indication that would show if DSP was on for input 1 or 2 or both. I believe that the Apogee Boom has that. It'll show like FX1 or FX2. And I think that that's a really nice thing because if you're not looking at the software, you're not going to know if DSP is on. But if you get this set up the way you want, it's definitely not the biggest deal that it doesn't have that, but I do think it would have been a nice addition. Now I'm just going to rapid fire a couple things that I like about this. I'm a big fan of the software. I think it works really well. I love the mobile in and mobile out. Oh, that's amazing. Big fan of the fact that this does have that extra stereo 3.5mm jack on the back. You could totally use that as a headphone jack, no problem. The headphones that I use to like critically listen and mix and stuff are these Sennheiser HD650s. These headphone outputs have no problem driving those headphones. I enjoy the fact that it does have the power plug options. That means that you could literally use this as a mixer or that you can just record straight to your phone. You don't have to worry about taking a computer with you everywhere. I loved the fact that this had DSP and that the DSP was as customizable as it was. And I loved the fact that it had the maximizer. I think that that's really helpful for a lot of situations. Like for instance, if I were to go live with this device and I get comments that the audio is a little too low, it's not loud enough. Instead of going and changing my DSP like the compressor and stuff, I could just literally go to that maximizer, turn it up a little bit until everyone's happy. So if you go live or you stream, that maximizer could really come in handy. I love the fact that this goes up to 72 decibels of gain. It easily drives the SM7b. Like quite honestly, I like pretty much everything about this. But here are a couple suggestions of things that I would change or potentially like to be added. Since there is an auto setup in the software and one of those auto setups is an instrument, it kind of makes me wish that this had some sort of amp sim that you could choose from. Like for instance, a clean or distorted or bluesy sounding guitar, or a bass guitar for that matter. I think that that would be really cool, but once again, that's asking a lot more, and I already think that this is a good deal. Now, when it comes to the software, I do really wish that it had a way to record in it. I understand that they give you a Cubase LE version, but I think that being able to record in that and potentially choose if you didn't have DSP that you could add it to an already recorded track, that'd be so cool. And in addition to that, I do wish there was a way that you could route a clean version of your microphone to a track also. I think that that'd be really nice to be able to do like a non-DSP version, record it in your DAW of choice, and then also be able to record a processed version. Kind of as a backup in case you didn't like the processing a whole lot after the fact, but I think that would be really nice. But now I'm going to go ahead and rate the Lewitt Connect 6. But before I do that, I do just want to let you know that Bark from Obscure Mics and we came up with a new standardized rating system. We're calling it the BBSOR. The BBSAR? I don't know. And actually, the way we came up with this is we had a podcast episode of a new podcast we're doing, Obscure Hotline, and we kind of discussed this whole thing of doing a 0 through 10 rating system. I used to do letter grades, but I think that this is going to be a lot less confusing for people. So with all that being said, the rating that I give the Lewitt Connect 6 is a 9. I absolutely recommend this device. Whether you are a live streamer, a YouTuber, a podcaster, a musician, I think that this device could work really well for you. But overall, I think the Lewitt Connect 6 is an absolutely outstanding device. Once again, I want to thank Lewitt for being awesome and sending the Connect 6 over for me to try out. I want to say a big thank you to you for watching this. I appreciate that. But an even bigger one, if you've subscribed, you're awesome. And the biggest thank you to every member of the audio hotline. You all are literally the sexiest people I know. I haven't seen some of you, but I just know you're damn sexy. If you want to be as hot as the other audio hotline members, go ahead and press join down below. Once again, thank you all for watching. I'll see you audio nerds next time.